The offset function is quite a versatile tool for report building. I'm going to show you two examples. One where we try to build a typical monthly report where you want to show the current month result and the year-to-date results, and the other one is looking at sales trends, for example, where you use it to build moving averages for the sales. In the basics of the offset function is that it is able to return a specified range or a single cell which you offset from a reference cell. So what it's able to do, it's actually able to tell Excel, okay, this is my base cell. I want to move up or down against that cell and to the left or right from that cell, and then return a specified range. So the syntax of the offset function is, first of all, we need to define that specific base cell or reference cell. This is the first one. Then we need to tell the function, okay, I want to move a certain number of rows up or down compared to that reference cell, base cell. So if we want to move one down, we just put in one and it would move one down compared to that reference cell. The other one is, of course, the column. So how much do we move to the left or right against that reference cell? So if you put in one, it would move one to the right. The other thing is the range which we want to return. Here we can say, okay, if the height of the range is 1 and the width of the range is 1, we return one cell. Or you could specify the height different and the width different, and it will return a range, which is quite useful, which we will see later on. We already got some figures in here, we just amend those. Let's just look at the month first of all here and look at the first cell which we need to specify. We want to offset against that blue cell over here. Do we want to offset any rows? No. What about the columns? Yes, that's the important part. So right now, if we put in 2, which is the reference to this one, it would offset 2 against that reference cell. That means it's counting 1, 2 against that reference cell. So 2 columns to the right now, which is quite nice. So it will return 1000 here, which is the sales figures for customer A for February. What about the height and width? Well, it's one cell, so it will be 1 and 1 here. Let's try just to build it in here, the month here. So offset, let's see if it returns it. And the reference is that one. And we don't want it to move down or up. We just want it to move to the right. So the rows would be 0. What about the columns? That's the important one, right? So we want it to move 2, 1, 2 down here. We can just refer to it to the place where we choose the month, so we have a bit of dynamics into it as well. What about the height and width? Okay, it's one cell, so it would be 1 and 1. Here we go, the 1 and 1, it's 1000, brilliant. So that is the sales results for February over here. Let's just make it the references a bit better so we can just copy it across. What about this one? It can't move to the right here, but it's able to move down because then we got the correct reference. What about the one where we choose the month? Well, it shouldn't move any places, so we just make it absolute. The others are just figures, so they are of course absolute. Here we go, copy it across, and it works perfectly well, right? Let's just check. Are we able to choose like March, for example, and it will return the correct or the current month sales figures? Yes, absolutely. Let's move it back to the February date. Let's click these off so we can't see them anymore. And then let's try to build the year-to-date, because the offset function is able to return a range, which is actually what we want. Of course, the February year-to-date figures would be these two, right? It would be 1500. And we can just ask the offset function to return that range and then sum upon that range. So we will start off with sum, and inside the sum we will just put the offset function, which will return the range here. Let's just look at the first one. So you see it moves from that one to this one because we're not offsetting against this one anymore. We're just defining the range now. That's the important part, and then sum upon that range. What about the rows? It would be 0. That's not important to move up or down here. What about the columns? Also, we're not offsetting against that one, but we're just defining the range to return here. What about the height? Of course, it's 1 because we're just returning for customer 1 here. And what about the width? And that's the important one. So we just wanted to return 2 here, and to make it dynamic, just refer to the cell where you choose the month here. So let's try to build it down here. And of course, remember, we want to sum over this range over here. So put in sum first of all. So sum, and then use the offset function. Here we go. And the reference was this one. We're not offsetting against it. And then we're not offsetting any rows, offsetting any columns, and the height is of course 1. And that's the important one. The next one, of course, we want it to be dynamic. So we refer to this one, which is 2 right now. So it's returning no offset against that reference rate. It's just a basically the range here. Let's cut it off here. Let's see if it works. Yes, 1500. So it actually summed these two together. Does it work if we have like margin here? Yeah, 1600. So it adds the 100 here. Let's move it back to February. There you go. Let's get the references right so we can copy it down. And again, as the other one, this one we don't want to be able to move in the columns. And this one is absolutely fixed, so it doesn't move where we choose the month over here. That's basically it. Let's move it ahead. Yes, it works perfectly fine. So right now you can see the current month and the year-to-date figures. Typical for a monthly report, which is quite nice. Let's look at another example where we actually calculate or look at trends, where we see the different moving averages here. So what we want to see is the moving average on a 4-week basis. And this is quite clever that Offset is able to do that. Again, we can just return a 4-week range and then use the average formula to average upon that range. Let's start in week 45 this time, so I can show you, okay, what does it actually do? First of all, what is the reference then? Of course, we want to start here. These are the ones we want to average upon. That is the range we want to average upon. But perfectly fine, the offset function can just move 3 back, right? 1, 2, 3. So we will start 3 back from the reference cell, and columns, none of course. What about the height of it? Yes, from that reference cell now. So this is a reference cell. We move 3 back always. And then you say, okay, the height of it should be these 4. And you see, if we just put an average in front of that, then it works perfectly fine. And you have the average range here. What about the width here? That's just 1, right? Let's try to build it in there. Remember, average first of all. And then we use the offset function. There you go. And the reference was this one. Then we want to move 3 back. There you go. And columns, well, we have none at all. What about the height? That's the important one. We want the height to be 4. It's a 4-week moving average. So 4. What about the width? Well, it's just 1 here, right? And does it give you the average here? Yes, that should be the average of these 4. And this is quite clever. Normally we would have, if you look at this one, for example, we needed to take these 3 and divide them by 3, right? But the offset function, if you just copy it back, let's just get the references correct here. That is actually only this one, and that means we can't move in the columns here. If you move it back, let's just see what it does. Now here, normally this is a 4-week. Now we only have 3 weeks now. Does it work? Yes. Why does it work? Because it moves 3 back, right? So it starts here and then it moves 4 forward and takes the average of it. So it's actually automatically dividing it by the number of weeks in here. So that's quite clever. You see the first one, you're just here, and it actually moves back, and then it says 4, and then it only picks up the 500, of course. So this is quite clever. Let's just copy it across, and then you have your moving 4-week average here.